the best of money matters. Wealth Tracker.
Welcome to Wealth Tracker, where we dive into the uncharted territories of niche investment strategies that promise to redefine wealth. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Tokenization is heating up in Asia, from MAS's Project Guardian linking Singapore and UK asset managers to billions of dollars in real-world assets being tokenized. Institutional adoption is no longer theoretical. Investors and funds are starting to treat tokenized assets as a legitimate part of their portfolios. So how is tokenization reshaping access to private markets and alternative assets? What new opportunities and risks does this create for investors in Asia? Well, to find out more, I'll be talking to Kingsley Advani, who is the founder and CEO of Allocations. Kingsley, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, Kingsley, just to start off here, how is tokenization changing the investment landscape in Asia Pacific, particularly for institutional investors?
So with tokenization, you have more access to more products. Secondly, you have more liquidity. So if you want to do secondary sales, for instance, of real estate or other types of assets, you have a 24/7 market for tokenized assets. Finally, the minimum check size goes down. So through blockchain, it reduces the friction of investing in different types of assets. And so you can have one-click type investments. So the friction and minimum investment size goes down. We're already seeing projects like you mentioned, Project Guardian in Singapore, which is spearheaded by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, that is really enabling this next wave of tokenization. I believe there's about $10 billion in tested tokenized assets across 40 plus prominent institutions, the likes of DBS. You have JP Morgan, HSBC. So we're seeing a lot of tokenization in Asia Pacific, and it's growing very quickly.
So what does the shift mean for liquidity, transparency, and market efficiency in private markets?
Yeah, so you have more liquidity. If you're moving assets onto the blockchain, it's easier to invest. And so you have more liquidity. You have 24/7 trading. So this means that on a Sunday night, if you look at stocks, there's about $115 trillion of equities globally, but they're closed 80% of the week, right? It's typically Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. Whereas on blockchain, it's a 24/7 market. So you really open up this liquidity that anyone from the world can participate on a 24/7 basis. Secondly, with transparency, with funds on the blockchain, everything is audited. If you send USDT or USDC as a stablecoin form of investment, this is auditable on the blockchain, and the asset that you're investing in is also auditable on the blockchain. So you can see that it exists, you can see the provenance, and this is a lot better transparency. And finally, it's a more efficient ways of investing.
Definitely. I mean, Singapore has emerged as a hub for regulated digital asset markets with clear frameworks that make institutional adoption safer and more scalable. So why is Singapore particularly well positioned to lead global tokenization efforts?
Yeah, as you said, Singapore has progressive regulatory framework. MAS has clear regulatory guidelines. And this balances both innovation and investor protections. You have the Payment Services Act, which was enacted in 2019. You have the Digital Token Service Providers Regime, which was enacted in 2025. So it does have progressive regulatory framework. Secondly, I would say that Singapore has prominent wealth management hub. It has the fourth largest population of millionaires with about 240,000 millionaires. And this is only behind New York, San Francisco, and Tokyo. So Singapore really does have a large wealth management population, and it's very well positioned to lead global tokenization efforts.
So how do initiatives like Project Guardian influence capital flows, investor confidence, as well as cross-border market access?
Sure. So the goal for Project Guardian is to advance the application of asset tokenization and DeFi in global financial markets. Really, three of its kind of core goals is firstly develop a common standard for asset tokenization to facilitate interoperability. This is important to have a common standard. Secondly, a common trust layer through regulated trust anchors. So they're bringing in regulated financial institutions to mitigate risks. And then finally, it's conducting industry trials and pilots. So there have been over $10 billion in tested tokenized assets across 40 plus institutions. So you're really getting highly regulated institutions doing the cutting edge of technology across fixed income, FX, tokenized green bonds, multi-currency issuances, and this really adds credibility to the space.
Well, I mean, tokenization, though, isn't just about Bitcoin or crypto. Real-world assets, equities, bonds, and pre-IPO opportunities are now being digitalized, creating new investment opportunities here. So, Kingsley, which asset classes are poised for the next wave of tokenization in Asia, and why are investors paying attention?
I would say stablecoins have been the dominant tokenized asset that has the most adoption. If you look at total market cap of stablecoins, it's about $280 billion. So this is one of the fastest growing sectors in crypto in general. If you can send USDT on a Sunday, if you're making an investment in a pre-IPO or real estate, I personally use stablecoins to invest in assets, and it's a much more efficient form of currency that it's 24/7. The fees are very low. I can send money on a Sunday. I don't need to wait for my bank. So I think stablecoins have a long ways to go. And you're even looking at Japan. There was something on Japanese FSA preparing a yen-backed stablecoin. So Asia is looking at issuing more stablecoins. In each country is looking at how they can build their own stablecoin to increase monetary flows. So I'm very bullish on stablecoins. I do think the other asset classes will come soon. Real estate, its total global market cap is about $330 trillion. So you do have a big real estate market. There's bonds that it's about $300 trillion total global market. Equities about $115 trillion. Cash is about $120 trillion. Cash has been the fastest to be tokenized with stablecoins, but over time we will see more adoption of other asset classes.
So how could tokenization also change the risk and, return profile for traditional and alternative investments?
You get access to more types of assets. The risk in return, it doesn't necessarily change. It just means you get more access to stuff. So, for instance, a Singaporean investor will soon have access to assets like SpaceX. SpaceX has traditionally been a pre-IPO private asset that it's difficult to get access to. So this is an example of an asset that I've personally invested in 5 rounds of SpaceX. And we've facilitated on allocations about 15 SPVs into SpaceX with about a few hundred investors. And so this is an example of an asset that typically, through technology, it was difficult to get access to, but technology can democratize access to these higher risk profile assets, but they can also have higher reward. I mean, SpaceX has had phenomenal returns over the last 10 years. So you do get access to more types of products with lower minimum investments.
Definitely. Well, I mean, traditionally, access to private markets and pre-IPO deals have been limited to a small group of, elite investors, as you've pointed out earlier. Now, tokenization could change that dynamic. So how might regulated tokenized access reshape wealth creation in Asia-Pacific markets?
Yeah, I think with regulated tokenized assets, you have more investor protection. So you're making sure these assets are vetted, that they adhere to regulatory standards, that you're not, you're selling high quality assets and you disclose the appropriate risks and disclaimers. And so I think it is important to have high quality assets. This increases investor confidence. You want to be having high quality offerings that deliver returns over long periods of time. Obviously, you can't avoid low quality offerings, but I think having a common framework and a common trust layer, you can increase the quality of offerings.
And with new technology and regulatory frameworks come new challenges, from operational risks to market volatility and investor protection. So, Kingsley, what are the key risks for investors then, and as well as markets, as tokenization scales across Asia? Yeah,
I would say one inherent risk is your security. And so you want to have strong security. You want to be storing your assets in multi-sig type wallets. Or have a custodian. You want to have strong security as an investor. So as a family office, for instance, you may have a custody vault. For instance, Fireblocks offer custody for crypto and other tokenized assets. And I'm a client for my family office. We have 2 out of 3 signatories. So to move assets in and out, you need to have 2 out of 3 signatures. So security is very important. You don't just want to have, a password that you use for your other devices to log in. You want to have strong security. Secondly, you want to invest with people you know. For instance, I've made over 200 investments. Most of them have come through my network. And so when you're investing in different assets, it's the same as investing in any other type of asset. How did you hear about this asset? Who is the fund manager? Do you trust them? Have you made money with them in the past? And so the source of the offering, where did it come from, is important. So I would say, your security and your vetting of deals is increasingly important.
Okay. Well, on that note then, Kingsley, how should market participants think about, valuation, liquidity, and governance when investing in tokenized assets?
Yeah, so valuation you always have to pay attention to. An example is SpaceX. If you're investing in a tokenized version of it, you still want to make sure that you're getting the right valuation. I have seen some platforms charge more fees because it's a tokenized version. Personally, when we offer SpaceX, we don't charge a load of markups on it. I think it's important to have fair pricing on these assets. So you definitely want to, if you're investing in a tokenized form of SpaceX, for instance, you want to make sure that the valuation is correct. There's not a lot of additional fees on top of it, because this can reduce your overall investment. So I would say overall you want to make sure that you read the fine print on these investment platforms and you're being efficient with the fees.
All right. Well, finally, Kingsley, before we let you go here, looking ahead, how do you see tokenization shaping capital markets, investment opportunities, and portfolio strategies over the next few years?
So we're very early on tokenized assets. There's about $900 trillion of global assets, and less than $1 trillion are tokenized. So it's less than 0.1% adoption. So we have a long ways to go. We'll see more and more tokenization over the coming years. I think there's a stat that expects $16 trillion of tokenized assets by 2030. So that's about, you could say, like a 30x increase over the next 5 years. So we will see more types of assets tokenized. We will see more investors investing in tokenized assets. I think as an investor myself, I do like the liquidity piece, that a tokenized version is easier to buy and it's easier to sell. So you can have a secondary market for any type of asset. There's a 24/7 secondary market. So I think we'll see this technology grow in adoption. We're still in the early innings. Less than 0.1% of global assets have been tokenized. So we have a lot of work to do.
Definitely. Some great insights from you there. Thank you so much, Kingsley, for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Kingsley Advani, founder and CEO of Allocations. This has been the Wealth Tracker with me, Hongbin Jeong.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.